Hello and welcome my friends. I am Asang Dani and today in this video about Quest installation and activation, I am going to show you how one can get into a situation during the offline activation stage where you get a message invalid activation response file. Now what happens is you already installed a Quest course or more than one Quest courses on the system. You were using them and it was working fine. For whatever reason, maybe viruses or anything else, you decide to format your system. Naturally, when you format the system, the Quest courses themselves also get erased. So you do have to reinstall them. And after reinstalling the courses, you try to do activation. Some people try to do online activation and that doesn't work. That doesn't work in some cases because the Windows operating system copy that you have been using, whether it is XP or Vista, may not be the legal one. So if that happens, then you go for offline activation. What most people do is they already have a request file created on the desktop. So they go ahead and send that request file as an attachment to the Quest support team. They get a response. They copy the response file onto the desktop as well. And then they expect that everything will work as expected. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So let me show you what can happen during such stage. Now when you get a message that you have to copy the response file also onto the desktop and that's what you have done, you click next and you get a message saying that file quest activation response.zip is invalid. Now what do you do in these cases? Because if you click next, there's nothing that happens. So in such cases, what you are supposed to do is the following. There are two situations. Either you have to go for, you hit the cancel button, close the Quest icon, and then you go to a directory, which I am going to show you slowly one by one. Type %user profile %. In that you have to go into local settings. In local settings, you go into application data. And then you find a folder called as lecture selector. You just delete this by hitting the delete key on the keyboard, click yes, and then you start the Quest application. Now in certain cases, instead of looking for the directory here, you also might have to look for folder program files kset private limited Quest, which is what appears here in the Explorer. And there might be a file called as pdb.xml in this directory. You just have to go and delete this file if any such file exists there. So either of the two will have to be done. In fact, what you should do is you should check both and clean up the state of installation if you have to. Now again, I'm going to click on offline activation and then click next. You can see that the new request file got created on the desktop, and this is what you have to send as an email attachment to the Quest support team. So I'm going to do that and then wait for their response. Before their response comes, just to avoid any accidents, I'm going to delete the previous response file. Now the once response file arrives, I'm going to copy it to the desktop and again I'm going to start Quest. Choose offline activation and then click next. I'm going to continue to click next until I see the finish button. Once I see the finish button, I know that all my courses have been activated and I can see the data structures course is now available as before. So I hope you have understood what one needs to do in case you are eager and you make a mistake about sending the old activation request file after formatting the system, or in case you created a new activation request file, sent it to the Quest support team, and before their response arrives, you have tried some other form of activation like online activation and that has failed. So activation request file and its response can be used only once, and once they have been used, best policy is to delete them. They are of no use. Don't try looking inside the files. There is nothing inside the file of use for you. You just have to delete them, and then anytime you have to reinstall the course for whatever reason, sometimes after formatting, sometimes even without formatting the system, you will have to create new request file, send it as a request or attachment rather, to info@ksetindia.com. Don't do anything until you receive the response, as it is clearly stated in the Quest user guide. And then once you get the response, copy the response file back to the desktop, launch the Quest program, choose offline activation, and then finish the activation process. So that's how simple it is to deal with the offline activation process in the event of formatting the system. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Take care and best of luck.